pretty good in New Hampshire so far. So I guess he's hoping that the momentum from that second his fish in Iowa will help him
Spook out.
Yes, but like you said, he hasn't really contested New Hampshire much yet. It's clear he's focusing on South Carolina, likely thinking that he's going to do better with Southern traditional evangelical voters as opposed to New England Republicans who are known.
Do you think he'll be all right?
More of a libertarian streak. And like I said, we just haven't heard his message yet here. We've got to wait out this weather.
At least if he's out, he's out, he's not fighting. He'll go to the trailer. He knows where to hide over there where it's warm.
Today, the U.S.
He's been out before in fall. This is his first time.
Government regulates about everything. A system in place for decades has imposed limits on air
Jenny would put him out in 23 below zero weather.
Workplace protections. Now, a group of herring fishermen from New Jersey has questioned the system. NPR's Carrie Johnson reports.
This sucks.
For Bill Bright, seafood.
I don't want the others to get out.
I'm kind of the black sheep of the family, and I actually went to the sea, and now my kids are following my footsteps. My boys are working on the business. My daughters, we have a shoreside business, and they run that. So the whole family is in the seafood business 100%.
Bright says he welcomes regulations to keep the herring population strong in the waters off of Cape May, New Jersey. But he says the fishery service went too far when the government mandated vessel owners like him had to pay for observers on the boats to make sure they're following the rules.
But we have this hanging over our head, and we're not under any illusion. Once they start charging us for the monitor, that's never going away.
He's the lead plaintiff in a case the Supreme Court will hear today, with implications far beyond the fishing industry.
The real purpose of it is to enfeeble the federal government so that we don't have the capacity to deal with modern problems, and billionaires and big companies can just do what they want and not be checked.
That's David Doniger, senior attorney at the Natural Resources Defense Council, a nonprofit environmental advocacy group.
Well, I've frequently quipped that my career would be bookended by the birth and death of the Chevron doctrine, and I would be on the losing side both times. I hope that's wrong.
In 1984, Doniger argued and lost an environmental law case involving the energy giant Chevron and the EPA at the Supreme Court. The facts of that case are overshadowed by a system it enshrines about the way judges evaluate federal regulations under legal challenge. Again, David Doniger.
So the doctrine from the Chevron case is judges are supposed to follow a two-step procedure.
First, judges are supposed to ask whether a law is clear when someone challenges a federal rule. Then, if the law is not clear, if there's an ambiguity,
then the court's supposed to defer to the agency decision if it's permissible or reasonable interpretation.
In practice, that's meant that courts often defer to people inside federal agencies who are experts on things like pollution, banking, and food safety. Paul Clement has argued more than 100 times before the Supreme Court.
Can't think of a better way to mark the 40th anniversary of the Chevron decision than with an overruling.
Clement will represent the herring fishermen today.
In our view, this really has gotten out of control.
Clement says the current system means Congress never has to weigh in and reach a compromise on the toughest policy questions, because one side or the other can just wait for a change in the executive branch every 4 or 8 years, and the rules will switch back and forth based on the views of the political party in power. Again, Paul Clement.
I think it's really as simple as this.
Yeah, that's the problem with our government, isn't it?
When the statute is ambiguous and the
John was
tie has
telling me
to go
something
to
about that.
someone,
John
we think
Wade.
the tie should go to the citizen and not to the government. And one of the many problems with the Chevron rule is it basically says that when the statutory question is close, the tie goes to the government. And that just doesn't make any sense to us.
Conservatives on the Supreme Court, including Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch, have been critical of the Chevron
must have
approach
some
for
serious
years
wind out
now.
there.
Gorsuch even wrote
Or they
that
can't
Chevron
drive.
deserves a tombstone. The effort to overturn the nearly 40-year-old case has the support
New
of
Kitty is on the other
conservative
side of the
legal foundations,
second
Gun
bunk,
Owners of
laying
America,
down.
and a trade group for
Hiding.
electronic cigarette makers. Don McGahn, the White House counsel for former President Donald Trump, made deregulation a top priority. McGahn told a conservative audience during the Trump years that Trump nominated judges who shared that outlook.
There is a coherent plan here where actually the judicial selection
bought that blue
is
truck.
the regulatory effort to really fix the
About that what?
The Biden
That blue truck
administration
on the
is
corner
defending
by our place now.
regulation and the Chevron doctrine. is a deeply ingrained part of administrative law. It's crucial to the health and safety regulations people rely on. The Solicitor General says in court papers that the monitoring program for the herring fishermen is not operating due to a lack of funds, and that vessels that already pay for monitors have been reimbursed by the federal government, so the actual stakes for the herring fishermen are low. David Doniger, the environmental advocate, says this case is about far more than fishing regulation.
It's that
The
testing
hidden
stuff
agenda,
that I
he
need.
says, is protecting big oil, big gas, and big financial industries.
They got over
The
60
motorboats are just,
west.
they're just a front. I mean, they're kind of a red herring.
70 on
The decision by the Supreme Court is expected by June. Karen Johnson, NPR News, Washington.
See something, say something. That is not just a slogan for subway stations and airports. Schools across the country have set up anonymous tip lines for their students to report potential threats from gun violence. And now there's a new study in the journal Pediatrics that finds that in one state, the tip line is catching those threats. NPR's Vijay Chatterjee has this report. This particular tip line is called the Say Something Anonymous Reporting System. Students can submit a tip through an app, a phone, or a website.
Oh, that's
and
sweet.
tips go to trained counselors at the Sandy Hook Crisis Center.
Beautiful
These
picture of
individuals
those
are
trees.
trained to live triage the tips.
Elise Tulin is at the University of Michigan's Institute for Firearm Injury Prevention. For their study, Tulin and her colleagues zeroed in on one state, North Carolina, and looked at data on tips from 2019 to 2023, a total of more than 18,000 tips.
What we found is that 10% of tips contain reference to a firearm.
38% of those gun-related tips were about potential school shootings, and nearly a quarter were about seeing or knowing of a weapon. And, Tulin says,
We found that 50% of the time that tips containing a firearm were requiring that urgent response.
a separate analysis by the Sandy Hook Homes Foundation shows that the tip line prevented 6 planned school shootings and 38 instances of school violence. Beverly Kingston studies violence prevention at the University of Colorado Boulder. She wasn't involved in the new study, but is heartened by the findings.
It demonstrates that anonymous reporting systems can be a useful and practical strategy to address gun violence and other concerning behaviors.
Kingston says these findings come at a time when gun violence has become a major public health problem.
In a country that has the level of firearms that we have, we need to have anonymous reporting.
Vijay Chatterjee, NPR News. This is NPR News.
This is CPR News, 19 minutes after 8 o'clock. You know the new Miss America was Miss Colorado, representing Colorado in the Miss America contest this past weekend. In one respect, at least, she is not like her predecessors, and we'll hear a little more about her in this next part of Morning Edition. The U.S. government wants to make more of the computer chips called semiconductors. It's sending a lot of money to Colorado Springs, and one chip maker is putting in a lot of money too.
Our domestic semiconductor industry needs to be able to take on the rest of the world, and we need to be able to do better than China.
It's a big goal, and we hear more about it. The computer chip industry in Colorado Springs, just a little later in this hour. In the Springs today, a high of 52. Denver just not quite hitting 50 this afternoon. It's going to be warm like that again tomorrow. Grand Junction, some snow today. Highs in the 30s. This is CPR News.
Support comes from Colorado Ballet, presenting Val Kilparo's Jekyll and Hyde, Denver premiere based on a graphic novel. Ballet Rockets operations February 2nd through 11th. ColoradoBallet.org.
Here at CPR, we're thankful for the donors and sponsors who choose to support this locally owned nonprofit news and music service.
There's the dream.
Do or be here for you without you.
Accountability is the key to make a new habit stick.